In this following video we're going to actually start creating a display grid, and this is the end goal for the first session of display grid. We need to create these blocks. So I have 12 different div blocks here, and each has a different color, sort of, and they have a width and they have different heights, and we're going to use display grid to create this very easily for us. So first things first, we need to go into our body, and we're going to use the emmet to create all our boxes for us. So we're going to use hashtag box and $, and then we're going to use a curly bracket, add a $sign in that, times 12. So this will increment the number of the IDs from 1 to 12. This will just write a number, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in each boxes, and we want 12 of those. So go back and tap, and then you hopefully get something like this. If you don't, manually type it in. This is all we need from our from our HTML pretty much. If we just go to our page and look, I have it open here. Where's my mouse? And I forgot to save, so let's do that quick. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's no code to this yet, and that's of course because we haven't made any. Now before I continue, I just forgot I want to create a main around this as well. So type in your main area, if I can make this work, and make sure that all your div blocks are nested inside of this. So let's do this and make sure that we indent our code so it's more pretty. This is all we need. In our styles here, we're going to use the main area, because just like we do with display flex, we need to initialize the display grid as well. So we need display grid. And just like with flex, we need to make sure that we understand the difference between the container and the items inside the container. So if we want to manipulate the things that are inside, or we want to manipulate these 12 boxes, and we want to use them to be moved around, styled, increase size, and so on, we need to initialize the main, because that's the container, and these are all the items or children of the main. So it's the exact same as you do with when you've been using with this display flex. I'm also going to give this a width, because so it doesn't go all the way to the page. I want to show you the difference. So I'm going to give it a 960 pixel. If we do this, click save, let's see what happens. Nothing happens yet. If we were to use flex, it would have changed this from a vertical to a horizontal. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 would have been here. Display grid actually keeps the structure as going from top and down instead of from left to right. But it's not really a big deal because it's just another, instead of using rows, it just continues as a default to use columns instead. So we have the width, and we're going to actually, before we do more, we're going to assign for each box. This is going to take a while. So I'm going to quickly make them, and the only thing I'm going to do is I create a box. For each box, I create a background color, and you can just, whatever you really want. So here I'm doing 99000. And I'm going to do this for each 12, and I'm just going to skip it, and you need to do the same for box 1 to 12, like so. Oh, sorry, 2, and background color, and then you're going to do like so. So please do from 1 to 12 with different colors. You only need colors for these. So I just pasted in boxes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, and 12, and I gave them somewhat different colors. Some of them are kind of the same colors, but it doesn't really matter as long as you can see there's a difference in color. That's the important part. So don't make them all red, of course. You can make them different shades of red, but as long as you can see the difference. So right now I just did this. So let's go check this in our browser. So right now each of them have a different color. As you can see, the width is 960 pixels here, and they're just being put down, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so going vertically down instead of horizontally. Now we're going to initialize how to use this grid here, and the grid is actually being built on something called, oops, sorry, I need to be here. It's actually being built on something called templates. So like I just showed you with our 12 columns, we can use something similar here. So it's called grid, kind of like when you do flex in the other one, and we use something called grid template, and we are going to use columns. Here we're going to tell the system that we're going to tell the system how many of these columns we want. So in this case we have 1, 2, 3, 4 columns. So we're going to tell the system create 4 columns for me. And need to go back to my Visual Studio Code here. I could do 4 columns manually, or I can make the system do it for me, and we can use something called repeat, and you all know what repeat means. Just repeat it as many times as I tell it. I want 4 columns, so create 4 columns for me. What I wanted also to do is I wanted to give it, as we see here, I wanted to give it an equal width. So this would be 25%, 25%, 25%, and 25%. We can do this kind of like we do in flex. So we would do a 1 in flex, kind of when we do the flex grow. We would just add 1 and it would actually also calculate it. So each of these would get a same amount. It's similar in grid, but instead of just having 1, you do a 1FR. And the FR is just short for fraction. So 1 fraction each. It's the exact same principle as in the flex. So if you were to write 2 and then 1, 1, 1, the first one will have more, but I'll show you that. Let's click save, see what happens. Oops, that's not the right one. So right now you can see it went from going into 1 column into 1, 2, 3, 4 columns, and they're divided equally. So if I were to change this to 2, nothing should happen here because it's just still dividing it up. But instead of having a repeat, I'm just quickly going to delete this to show you the difference. I could have done 1FR, 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 1FR. This is exact the same. But if I do 2, 2, and before I refresh, this and this column will be more. So they will be probably around here, the breakpoint. So you can see these are just getting smaller. The 2 last and the 2 first are actually taking up more space. I can even add a 3 here. So 3, 2, 1, 1. Now this will take up more space than the second column and even more than the other one. So I can actually start manipulating the width of our design really easily by doing this. But since our columns all have the same width in this one, I'm just making it repeat it, so I don't have to type it in as many times. Last part of this is to make it have a height here. So this height, and this height. And right now it's not doing that, of course. So we're going to do something similar. We're going to do grid templates, and instead of columns we need the rows. And here we have 3 rows. I'm gonna save this and refresh. So we have 3 rows like we do here, but we have different heights on these. And we can do something similar that we just did to the columns. And we're just going to assign a value. We could also do a repeat here if you wanted to, but we want different sizes for this, 300 pixels and 200 pixels. So you can see the structure here is kind of like, once we do the, for example, margins, we just make a space for each column, so each row. This is the first row, this is the second row, this is the third row. So let's click save and go to the browser and test. So now these are exactly the same, and we created this basically with just this here. This is all we actually added to create this specific grid template. The rest down here is just coloring the background so you can actually see them, but this is the actual structure of the page, created really, really easy. And we're going to continue in the next couple of movies to see how we can actually improve this a little bit.